When they told me Ryan had AIDS, I just could not imagine him being one of the first to have this disease. And so I wanted all these tests run all over again. I thought somehow, some way, it's going to be something different. But they kept assuring me that yes, Ryan has AIDS. Well, he had 3 teachers that came down to visit him. He'd missed about 2 weeks of school by that time. He was very, very sick. They knew he was in intensive care. They brought a lot of cards and letters from his classmates, and they were very concerned. They came up to the floor, and they asked me what was wrong with him. I said, well, you know, they say he has AIDS, but I said, I think they're going to find out it's something else. I said, he will be so excited that you're here. I said, all you have to do is put on these gown and gloves, and you can go in and see him. They said, oh, no, that's all right. I said, really, it's for his protection. They said, no, we'll leave the cards and letters out here. Well, I always thought maybe everybody knew more about AIDS than I did, but I soon found out that nobody knew anything about AIDS. The CDC shows up at the hospital, and to me, that's like the government. I mean, I was just petrified. They wanted to go over all Ryan's medical charts. They had me fill out these pages and pages and pages and pages of everything we do in our family. I said, you know, we're a real affectionate family. I said, we hug, we kiss, we share drinks. This is really scaring me. I said, I have a daughter to think of. And they assured me then, back in 1984, that no family member had ever come down with AIDS, so I had nothing to worry about. Well, I started seeing signs all around the hospital. I started seeing certain nurses always taking care of Ryan. But Ryan continued to kind of improve. He started getting better. He was on some treatment for his pneumonia. And at the end of January, he was finally able to leave the hospital. Well, there we were going on almost a month and a half, and Mom was really getting worried. I mean, even though he was allowed to leave the hospital, I was really worried that something was going to happen to him. But he kept gaining weight, he kept eating, and all of a sudden he looked healthier than he had been in so many years. I mean, he was just wanting to do everything. He said, Mom, please, can I go back to school? I said, I don't know, Ryan, let's just be a little patient. Well, every day when I come home from work, I would see him watching I Love Lucy, Andy Griffith on TV. He'd be so excited to see Mom when I got off work. And not that that doesn't excite a mom, but because as a mom, I mean, you want your kid to be happy to see you. But it was so strange because I thought, boy, he can't wait for Andrea to get home. He can't wait for anything to happen because he's like waiting to die. He has nothing really to live for. He's just sitting down here at the house, almost waiting to die. So when he called me at work one day, he said, Mom, I'm just so bored. He said, will you call the school and see if I can go visit? He said, they have pizza on Friday, and I really like the school's pizza. He said, maybe I'd be all right if I just got to see some of my friends. I said, well, I'll call Mr. Colby. I called Mr. Colby, and Mr. Colby said, oh, boy. He said, well, call me back after spring break. Well, I called him back after spring break, and Mr. Colby said, have you talked to the local board of health? I said, no. He said, well, Ryan can't even come to visit school. He said, but you need to talk to the local board of health. He said, there's been concerns, and they are thinking about putting a quarantine sign on your door. He said, but you need to talk to them. So I called the local board of health, and they said, no, we're not putting a quarantine sign on your door, but we're waiting on some kind of guidelines. The state of Indiana was the first state to have to issue guidelines for people with AIDS. The blood spill, the cleanup, and so forth. And that was really because of Ryan White. They just felt like, you know, there had to be some kind of state statute, so to speak, as far as how to treat people with AIDS or blood spills and so forth. I waited, and there were Indiana set guidelines that Ryan posed no threat for him to go back to school. But I called Mr. Colby, and I said, Mr. Colby, Ryan's really concerned that he's going to have to take the 7th grade over again. I said, he really wants to stay with his class. I said, he's kind of smart. I said, is there any way he could take a test and maybe be able to stay with his class? He said, I think Ryan should take the 7th grade over again. He said, let me tell you, he said, the school board's going to vote in July whether to allow Ryan in school for next year or not. He said, just be patient, okay? Let everybody get the education and so forth. In July, I did not hear anything. I didn't even think about it, really. We were just kind of in a news media, it went over the news wires that the superintendent and the school board had voted unanimously not to let Ryan back in school. But I did not know it. And CBS Morning News called me and they asked me, are you aware that they voted not to let Ryan in school? And I said, I have no idea. And he said, well, are you going to fight this? I said, you know, I have no idea what we're going to do. I said, this is the first I've heard about it. Then an attorney from Lafayette, Indiana, Mr. Vaughn, called and he said, you know, I've heard about Ryan on the news. He said, does Ryan really want to go back to school? I said, you know, I'll let you talk to him. Ryan got on the phone. Mr. Vaughn said, Ryan, it could really get ugly. Ryan said, I could take it. He goes, do you really want to go back to school that bad? And Ryan said, yes. I said, wait a minute, Ryan, give me the phone. I said, Mr. Vaughn, I don't have any money. He said, some people have money and some people don't. He said, if Ryan really wants to go back to school, I'll get him there. This is something that I believe in. And so Mr. Vaughn represented Ryan. It took a whole year, almost a year and a half of going through every kind of court proceeding that you can imagine. Ryan had to be evaluated by every kind of doctor you could imagine because he went under the handicap statute and they had to make sure that Ryan understood his disease. His disease was fatal. He was going to die. There was all this criteria, and Ryan always came out really smiling and understanding, and the doctors all gave him permission to go back to school. Well, at first we fought the teachers and the school board. Then we had to fight the concerned parents group, and that's when it really became ugly, because the parents got involved and started doing a lot of things in the community against us. And Ryan finally won the right to go back to school, but the prejudices were still there. There was a lot of things being done. And it was kind of scary because I knew Ryan he had handled himself so well in the media all this time that I knew he could handle almost anything. I get a call at work and Ryan calls me. He said, Mom, I'm not sure what to do. And I said, what's the matter? He said, when I got to school today, the outside of my locker was marked fag and other things. He said, when I opened up my locker, somebody's been in my locker. He said that all my books and folders had fag and other things wrote on them. He said, Mom, I can't take these things to class or everybody will laugh. I said, Ryan, give me the principal. He said, Mom, the principal's not here. I said, give me the vice principal. He said, Mom, they're all at a meeting at another school. I said, Ryan, there has to be somebody at that school. He said, Mom, there's a secretary here. I said, Ryan, give me the secretary. The secretary got on the line and I said, you know, I've never called a press conference in my life, but I'm about to call my very first one. I said, you have 5 minutes to get him a new locker and new folders, or I'm going to have every meeting in the country at that school. And I tell you, I've never done anything like that before in my life. But as a mom, you just get to a point where you just hardly can't take it no more. We've been through a year and a half of torture and hell, and I was not going to take it no more. He won the right to go back to school. I knew he couldn't infect anybody. And so Ryan calls me back about 10 minutes later. He said, Mom, everything is cool. He said, I have a new locker. I got new folders. He said, really, Mom, everything is okay. The kids continued to kind of make fun of him and bully him. They'd say, now you have it, now you have it. Oh, there he is, there, but back yourself against the wall. Everybody move, everybody move. Here he comes. Kids continue to really make fun of him. But Ryan held his head high. And I was always so pleased when I found out the stories that were coming through the media that the school had said things that had happened, and Ryan gracefully always held his head up high. Well, because of a made-for-TV movie, The Ryan White Story, which is on Netflix now, everybody's been asking, and if you can't watch it on Netflix, that was the first thing that we really got paid for. And with that money, I got $25,000 up front movie money. And I had a check, and I looked at it for 2 weeks, and I thought, whatever I do, I got to try to make our life better if I could. I didn't know whether I could or not, but I so happened, I looked at a house about 30 miles from Kokomo, called Cicero, Indiana, and we did a lot of hope and praying that the community would welcome us, and they did. When the rumors were flying that Ryan was moving into the neighborhood, the school board got together. The student body president, Jill Stewart, who lived 3 doors down from us, which we didn't know at the time, she went to school, talked to the principal. The school board all got together, and they had mass educational efforts. And everybody was educated about AIDS. All the kids went home and educated their parents. Their parents were invited to educational seminars, and Ryan was welcomed. And he said, for the first time in my life, I feel like I've got other people fighting it with me, Mom. I feel like we're all fighting this together. Ryan went to proms, he went to dances. The first day we moved into the house, we had 5 kids that stopped by the house to introduce themselves to Ryan. They said, Ryan, just so you'll know somebody when you go to school. I had 3 moms that stopped by and said, if you ever need anything, you let me know. Those 3 moms are still one of my best friends even today. Sometimes, I tell you, you don't know. You don't know what to do. You think everything's going to be all right, and everything was all right. I prayed that everything was going to be good when we moved to Cicero, Indiana, and it was the best choice I could have ever made. I think Kokomo needed a break from us as much as we needed that break from Kokomo. That was always my saying, that I think everybody just needed to take a break from dealing with this, because we were sick of it and so were they. But nobody realized that I was the one having to live with it, and I was the one that was going to have to lose a child probably eventually. But somehow, some way, we kept praying. Every night we thanked the Lord for another day. It got to where Ryan was so positive about himself. He even talked to me about what he wanted to be buried in. I said, Ryan, now wait a minute, let's not go there. Mom don't want to talk about this. He said, no, now listen, I know you like me in a tux. But he said, Mom, I don't want to be buried in a tux. He said, I want to be buried in my red T&C shirt, my Guess jeans, my Air Jordans, and my Oakleys. I said, your Oakleys? He said, yeah. He said, you know how people lie in a casket and they look at people to see if their eyes move? I did not know anybody ever did that. But for some reason, when Ryan, the only funeral he had been to was when he was little. That must have been what he did. He said, I want you to put my Oakleys